They never looked at it as the future, but when something happened, they would use this word fulfilled, as it coincides with another prophecy. Let's go look at this one more time. God with us. Did this coincide with Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14? Not Isaiah chapter 7, 1 through 20 something. It coincided with that specific prediction. It coincided. What coincided? The sign that God was with him. Let's go to 2 Timothy. 1 verse, 3:16. So people say, you know, the Old Testament writers, they say, well, the Old Testament defenders, I hate calling the Old Testament, the people who just deal with the law and the prophets and reject the writings of the apostles. They say, well, you know, they didn't name Christ Emmanuel. Well, they didn't name the son in Isaiah Emmanuel either. Emmanuel was the term to signify God was with them. And that is what Matthew was bringing out. God was with them. Just like when he read the, in fact, I'm gonna read that next one too to show you how it was used again. How that same form of interpretation by the New Testament writers is used again, not just in that text. But first, let's finish this off. 1 Timothy 3:16, my brother. Just that one verse. How did they understand the birth of the Mashiach?
1 Timothy 3:16.
God was with them. And that is what Matthew was pointing out of Isaiah. It coincided that God was with them. When you get it, go ahead and read 1 Timothy 3:16.
Without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifested in the flesh, justified in the spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory.
Oh, and received. So what was the idea? Emmanuel was with them. And he used Isaiah to what did fulfilled also mean? How the birth of the Mashiach coincided with. The birth of the Mashiach coincided with the birth of that son during the days of Ahaz. They both were signs and they both signified God was with them. Just the Mashiach was in more of a broader detail, that God literally came and tabernacled in the flesh among men. You all follow what I'm trying to explain here? Let's follow this up a little bit. Let's go back to Matthew.
Brother Judah, that was 3:16.
2 Timothy, yes, 3:16. I'm sorry, 1 Timothy 3:16. Now, if you will, let's go back to Matthew. Look at this a little further to get an idea of how the New Testament writers understood things. He wasn't trying to distort the writings of Isaiah. We got enough messianic prophecies in the scriptures. Daniel 9 talks about the Messiah coming. Moses speaks of him, one coming like Moses. But the other prophecies concerning the messianic prophecies, a lot of it has to do with the coinciding of different things that took place among the prophets that was happening in their day. And this is the language we have to understand when we start to read the New Testament. I believe it'll bring clear understanding as we're reading. Matthew, I said Matthew, right? Chapter 2 and 16. Look at this one now. Let's see if we can understand the principle in what Matthew was bringing out. The writer, he wasn't changing the scriptures, but he was bringing out an inspired truth and how prophecy coincide with something which was going on then.
Matthew chapter 2 and 16.
Right. Now, if they had Matthew saying this before the Messiah, he prophesying before the Messiah was born, like he didn't even see the Messiah, that's something different. Matthew was giving a history, but he wrote this after the Messiah's birth. So he's giving a history and showing how prophecy coincide with what took place in his day. Look at this one now, brothers and sisters. Matthew 2 and 16.
Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under.
Because Herod wanted to find out who this baby was that was born.
Right.
He wanted the wise men to bring him back a report. Excuse me. They got wind to go another way. That's what they did. Herod got mad, and he decided to cause some turmoil. Go ahead, brother.
According to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men, there was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not.
He quoting Jeremiah. And he's showing how Rachel, this was a prophecy in Jeremiah, right? Well, let's go look at Jeremiah, chapter 31. And see what Matthew was doing again. Jeremiah 31 and 10. Was Matthew or was Jeremiah here making reference to Jeremiah prophesying of what Herod was going to do? Because that's how we're caused to believe it when we read the prophets. I mean, when we read the New Testament writers. And then when you read it, say, well, wait a minute. No, you know, something must be wrong with Matthew, because that didn't say nothing about Herod. Matthew never said anything about Herod. Matthew telling you what his intention is. The sign was of that virgin conceiving to bring forth the son, or showing God is with us. Here, his intention is to what? Show you what the children of Israel went through, just as they did in the days that Jeremiah talked about. Let's see what Jeremiah talked about. Jeremiah 31, if you will. Let's start reading at verse 10. Jeremiah 31 and 10.
Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, he that is scattered Israel will gather him, and keep him as a shepherd doth his flock.
We've been reading about the scattering. We done prophesied, we done read the prophecy on the 10 tribes being let off, and then Isaiah began to talk about how Assyria was going to come and invade Judah. And if we were to read Jeremiah, Jeremiah's ministry was to show what? How Nebuchadnezzar was to come and destroy Jerusalem, the capital now, and totally destroy the temple that Solomon built. Is that right? So now he's saying, listen, the Lord, Yah, he has scattered Israel, but he gonna gather them, and he shall keep them. What verse you at?
Verse 11.
Go ahead.
For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob, and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Therefore he shall come and sing in the height of Zion, and shall flow together to the goodness of the Lord, for wheat, and for wine, and for oil, and for the young flock, and for the herd. And their soul shall be as a watered garden, and they shall not sow any more at all.
They shall not
sorrow any more at all.
Why were they sorrowing? Because one who was stronger than them came in and scattered them. Now let's skip down, if you will, to verse 15. Notice this now. This is what Matthew mentioned.
Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rahel weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children because they were not.
Why were they weeping? Didn't he say lamentations and bitter weeping? Is Jeremiah the author of the book of Lamentations? What was the Lamentations about? The children of Israel, babies being dashed against the stones, the nation itself being destroyed, Nebuchadnezzar and his kingdom come and destroy young and old. Wasn't that what prophesied by the prophet? He shall kill young and old.
Wipe it clean like a plate.
He's going to wipe it clean like a plate. And it was given, that analogy, Rachel is weeping because she would not be comforted because of the slaying of her children.
Right.
This is what Jeremiah was prophesying about, verse 16.
Verse 16. Thus saith the Lord, refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears, for thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord, and they shall come again from the land of the enemy.
See, that happened already. You notice verse 15 where it says, a voice was heard in Ramah. That's what they heard when Nebuchadnezzar came in there destroying everything. So what was Matthew doing? he was using the same analogy of Rachel's children being slain. But this time, who were they being slain by? Herod.
I think that's the key word right there. You said analogy.
Yes. It coincided. This slaying of Rachel's children coincided with what Nebuchadnezzar and his generals did when they came and invaded Judah. But the writers use fulfill. But that word fulfill used, one of the definitions is what? To coincide with prophecy. To coincide with prophecy. The birth that Miriam gave of the Mashiach coincided with the same birth of the prophets. It coincides. Not that Isaiah was specifically talking about the Messiah. Not that Jeremiah was specifically talking about Herod. He wasn't mentioning Herod at all. He was talking about Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. Right or wrong? Some going to say you're right. Some going to say, oh man, get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about. All right, you know. I put an effort for it, right? Can we look at another one? How y'all about looking at another? Y'all want to look at another one? Yeah. Now let's get some more witnesses. Let's go to Matthew 13. Matthew chapter 13. Matthew knew what his intention was. And it's going to get a little bit more clear on how it's used. Matthew 13. So it would be a mistake to say that Isaiah chapter 7 was talking about the Messiah. Isaiah chapter 7 was not talking about the Messiah. Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 14 coincided with the birth of the Messiah. But the chapter itself was talking about Rezin, Pekah attacking Ahaz, and the son of the prophet is being born as a sign of Ahaz, that both them kings shall be knocked off before the son come to know his father and mother or become the maturity, choose right way. You know, that's the language of the Bible that I'm learning.
It's one heck of a statement. You said, listen,
yeah.
Before he even learns to refuse the bad and see the good,
yes,
it's going to be over.
It's going to be all done. So we have to understand, it's like, again, I say it over and over again, I bring it up again, people read where they talk about the last days and they thought the apostles talking about, look, they knew what they were saying. We have to understand what they were saying. Whether you agree with what Matthew used or not, that's your problem.
Right.
But however, I'm learning why he said what he said. Because they understood the Messiah as God being with them. And he came forth through a virgin, and it coincided. I understand what he was saying with Rachel crying for her children or whatnot, because a great slaughter went through the land, just like Nebuchadnezzar went through the land. And it coincided. So I'm not going to be arguing and wrestling with these people. See, something you don't have to wrestle with. I've seen a lot of people stop when they put something down on the table and see that they think they know your doctrine. Well, you will stop them. Well, you know, they think you're going to Isaiah 7 to prove the traditional theologian's doctrine. And then when I say they wrong, you sort of took the momentum out they blow. You know, you had to take the momentum out they blow. They wasn't expecting for you to agree with them. And then it sort of disarms them. So now what? They basically got to listen to what you're about to say. Because you didn't know that I didn't teach that, did you? Let's see. Matthew 13, verse 13. Look at this. Look at this one. Now, remember, I was talking earlier today. I'm going to bring it out a little bit more because the Lord had a reason for me to talk about it today. We were talking about secret society. I was talking about secret society, one of the brothers today. And I made a statement. You know, there's a whole bunch of secret societies. I said, did you know Christianity itself, or the doctrine of the apostles, is a secret society? When people say, well, what you talking about? It was, wasn't it? How many times did the apostle and Christ speak secretly and didn't tell the public? Paul said the same thing, didn't he? To those who are perfect, we talk about this. But those who are unlearned, only thing I'm letting know to them is Christ and Him crucified. Because as in any secret society of knowledge, people don't turn this into taboo to, you know, the secret societies, all of a sudden they communicate with demons and playing with, what they call them boards, them Ouija boards. See, I'm not going to take it that far. You see, what you deal with is levels of knowledge. All right? It's the same thing with learning the